Hello everyone, this is Subbu. Today we have Ivneet, a technology leader, many years of experience in the fintech and technology space. She has worked in very large organizations and solved complex problems. This is great. Just to kind of recap or summarize, focus on the means, focus on the process, not on the goals. That's number one. Second is you mentioned about taking breaks. That helps to kind of focusing on the mental and physical health also helps prioritize things. One help I need is one guidance. I think that I would like to know is when to say no, when not to say no.
I think you have to understand the context. So one is don't jump into saying either no or yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was taught very early on, luckily, where somebody just used these words with me and they have stayed with me. Seek to understand before being understood. So if somebody is asking you for something, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, you have to first take time to understand where they are coming from and why are they asking for it. Because more often than that, you actually realize that either you can get them to a different place or you will get yourself to a different place in making a decision about yes or no once you have had that understanding. So that's one thing I do, that I actually pause. I don't say yes or no in a hurry to anything. I actually pause. And then I determine how is this going to impact what this person is asking for and how is that going to impact me. The things which I don't compromise on. If it is going to be detrimental to my physical and mental well-being, 9 times out of 10, I am going to say no. Like there are some lines that I draw that which I do. But in all the other cases, I have realized that if you're having the conversation, you can get to a middle ground. And second, the saying of the no, it doesn't have to come from a place of emotion. It can come from a place of facts with the data, where you're able to say, no, I am not going to be able to do this, and here is why. Let's find another way to do this, whatever this is. And I use that techniques both in my personal and professional life. It's okay to say no. First thing is you have to be okay with saying no. A lot of us want to be people pleasers, right? And then, okay, what if my boss is saying something and I don't want to say no to them? What if I really like this peer and I don't want to say no to them? But you're not helping either one of them by not doing that, because you're going to do something which you don't want to do, which you are going to be unhappy about. So more than likely, you're not going to put your 100% in it. So just pause, make sure you understand why would you want to say yes and why would you want to say no, and then have a conversation before conveying your ultimate choice or decision.
This is awesome. One thing I learned recently is speaking with one of my engineers, I picked up a Gen Z lingo. It's called, I think it's FOMO, fear of missing out. I think that's one of the reasons why people don't say no as well. Either it's a fear of missing out of an opportunity or fear of missing out of a fun activity. Or fear of missing out of being a part of a crowd. I think what would your recommendation for that scenarios where they feel like I don't want to miss out on this opportunity? How would you say no to that?
Okay, that's a tough one. And I go through that too. It's not that I don't go through that, but my advice is still the same. You pause and say, what am I going to get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth me doing that at the expense of something else? Because if you're doing something, there is something else you're not doing. And the something else might be a 2-hour nap you need to take because you have only slept 4 hours versus going to another party. So what are you going to prioritize? Are you going to compromise in your health and go do that? Or are you going to go take a nap so that you can be more energized? So this is where a lot of introspection comes in, and some of this really comes with time. It happens with the work meetings also, right? Where you want to be in every meeting because you want to hear things which are going on, because you will miss out. But trust me, you're not going to. Somebody is going to tell you what was going on. you are going to be able to catch up. You don't have to be everywhere. Because at the end of the day, you have finite energy. That's what you need to remember. You have finite energy. So you have to decide where you're going to spend that energy. And is it going to get you closer to whatever you're trying to get to, whether it's, getting ahead in your career, or whether it's making sure that you're doing well physically and mentally, or you're taking care of your family. So it's always a trade. There is always a price to be paid for whatever decision you make. So make sure that you're thinking through that when you have the FOMO, essentially. But a lot of it actually comes with experience, that you have to go through and make some, I would say, not so optimal choices before you start
Making
saying
optimal choices. Yeah.
no. Yes.
Makes sense. I think speaking of Gen Z, right? I think when you started, I think a lot of Gen Zs might be watching this video. So the question revolves around what sparked your interest when you left college, right? When you left college, why you chose this space? Like, how did you land in your first job, or why you chose this technology space?
Well, it was 100% an accident. I wish I could tell you that it was very planned and that's what I wanted to do when I was growing up. That was not the case. I grew up in a very small town in India, and my only two choices were either to be an engineer or to be a doctor. My dad was an engineer, so I thought, okay, let's try that. And I know it's kind of hard to believe even for me right now, but um, my original goal was just to be a software engineer as I was completing my degree. And that's pretty much all I knew from a career perspective. There was really no guidance or mentor to help me understand, where can this career go? What else can you do? And I know my story is not unique. This happens with a lot of people, but for me, it was an accident. But what happened was that as I started working, I got really lucky to have great colleagues throughout my career. And they helped me understand my strengths and also pushed me to think broadly and think differently and think bigger, if you will. Personally, the light bulb moment for me happened as I started leading teams. I realized that I really enjoy bringing a group of people together and harnessing the power of collective brain to solve the problems. I also realized that I really love seeing people grow and do their best work. So those are the things I learned. And then lastly, I learned that I don't like solving a very narrow set of problems or challenges. I like broad and complex set of challenges. So that, I would say, has been more my passion, and even more than tech. Tech is kind of means to an end, because tech drives so many things, right? It is the engine of innovation. But at the end of the day, you're still talking about people. You're still talking about solving problems. So when I think of those things, that's what excites me. That's what I'm passionate about. And just solving and kind of looking at bigger and bigger problems, that is what helps me to continue, expand my learning. And that's what keeps me going. I like being challenged. I like working with smart people. I like learning from them. And I like seeing tangible and intangible progress as we solve complex and strategic problems.
Makes sense. I have a zillion questions to ask. Literally, number of questions are popping up, but since we are limited in time, I'm just trying to keep specific questions that might be useful for the audience. My next question is kind of the same lines. I still, when I do interviews, when I ask questions, people say that I want to be a software engineer 5 years from now. I want to be a software engineer 8 years from now. So I still hear people say that, right? What would be your recommendation for them? Because we can't force awareness, but they have to go find it. And what would be your tip for them so that they understand there are other alternative options out there?
I would say be very aware of, you can start wherever. Okay, so don't worry about where you're starting. Don't worry about the fact that you have to land your first job as the right job. It's okay if you actually hate your first job. That's actually a good thing that if you do, because you're going to very quickly learn things that you do not like and don't want to do. But let's say you even started as a software engineer. So if you're paying attention, you're going to be able to realize in a few months things you enjoy, and you're able to basically lose yourself in doing, and things you don't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start figuring out, okay, here are the things I really enjoy, that then starts giving you a framework for going to whatever next in your career looks like. And next in your career doesn't have to be the part that where you have to grow vertically and you have to become a people leader and you have to, get to a certain title. I would say the more important things to figure out is what drives you. What do you wake up for every day? What kind of problems you like solving? What do you feel, fulfilled when you do that? Those are a little bit harder when we are younger, because we have grown up in a certain society and certain environment, which, drives us to think about the, I would say, the title piece, the number of people you're managing piece, and all of that. I will tell you, all of that will come. All of that will come if you can truly focus on figuring out what you're enjoying
Makes
and
sense.
what you like to do.
Awesome. Is it fair to say, again, it's a question, is it fair to say it's good to experiment in the early stages, because it may be, even if you want to, it's difficult to experiment at the later stages of the career. Is it fair to say that?
No, I think you can experiment at any stage.
Awesome. Okay.
And I believe you have to be open to that. That is if there is one thing you take away from this conversation, is that is just be open to change. You are going to grow as a person as you're going through your career. You are going to change. You're going to learn more. You might want to just do something completely different, which is not in technology but is tech adjacent. I can tell you that, I think about a career change too. Even now, I don't know that this is what I want to do in next 10 years, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm very open to that change. I'm okay if, 5 years from now, I think about the fact that I actually want to go run a yoga studio. I'm going to be okay with that. I'm going to let that be an okay thing to think about, whether I do it or not. The growth happens when you let yourself be open. And that's when the change also happens.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm glad you said that, because I'm experimenting so quite a lot. So it helps me a lot as well. Awesome. This is great. Yeah, one more question. This is around the mindset. I think you have been in the industry for a very long time. I see some people, they learn one technology, and then suddenly when they see a new technology, they start to panic. And especially now, the technologies keep changing every year. We see something new coming up. What type of mindset we should have in this constantly changing technical landscape? Yeah.
I think of this I will tell you the three principles that I apply, and I ask the people I work with to apply. One is uh, building resilience and tenacity. That is really critical as the pace of change increases, right? So you being resilient that, okay, the situation is changing, the technology is changing, my job is changing. Having the mindset of, I am going to figure it out. This is just another situation that I am in. I've learned something before and I can learn something new. And I'm going to be able to put in that work. That, I believe, is the mindset which will help you through pretty much any situation in life, personal or professional. So I would say focus on being resilient and focus on having the tenacity. Second thing I would say is make sure that you get comfortable with ambiguity. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to know a new technology the moment it comes in, because it might change 3 months from now, but your basics should be there. And by basics, I mean your curiosity to learn that, and you have to be okay with learning. What you can't say is, because I learned this 5 years ago in college, So I don't want to go learn new things. I can tell you, as I have grown in my career, it has been a nerve-wracking experience every time. When you go into a new job and it's bigger and more complex than the other job, you have to learn new skills constantly. And then it is just so much fun once you get through it and you're like, okay, I can do it. So that's the way I think about it. And the last thing I would say is, don't compare yourself with others. Everybody learns differently, everybody thinks differently, everybody has different goals. So if you're going to compare yourself, you can have others as your role models, but that's very different than having a comparison lens.
Makes sense. This is awesome. One follow-up question on that one. I think I'm just putting myself in someone's shoes and looking at it. So when they're trying to switch jobs, quite often there is a panic when you see job posting. It says that 5 years of experience in this tech space, 3 years of experience in this tech space. They're just transitioning. How do you deal with those scenarios when you're just transitioning? You know you don't have that experience, but you have to get there. What would be your quick tip for that?
Take a few deep breaths. Let's just start. Remember, they hired you. They hired you. They saw something in you. I have dealt with that imposter syndrome and, am I going to be able to do this? It happens. And part of it is partially good, because then you are actually going to work harder. A little bit of nervousness, and that nervous energy is actually good. If you can channel that into working hard and learning and just kind of, understanding whatever your new job is. But just remember, you got hired somewhere. They saw something in you. And you have been able, you got through school, you got through college, you went through your first interview when you didn't know anything, and you were able to do that job successfully, and now you're doing this next job. So you can look back and say that you were able to get through all of those situations. So this is just another thing where you're going to learn more and get to do more, and try to have fun while you're doing it. I truly believe, and maybe that's the part of getting older, that life passes by while you are waiting for it to happen. It is happening. So have fun, trust in yourself, know that somebody hired you for a reason, know that you have been constantly learning and improving so far, and this is just more of the same, just with a different set of problems and skills.
Awesome. This is great. Okay, so I want to quickly pivot. Okay, a lot of people, and even I've gone through this as well. Suddenly, you're moving from an engineer to a director or a manager. Now, communicating with execs, CTOs, CEOs, CIOs, I think there is no training class for that. You have to figure it out. Not only communicating, how to operate with them. Like, what would be your quick tips on, hey, here are the best practices on operating with a C-suite, like a CTO, CIO, CEO, or a CFO? Can you give me some quick tips?
So I would say the first thing is, do not surprise them. Make sure that you're being very proactive in communicating the important matters and urgent matters. Nobody likes to be surprised, and I can tell you, C-suite has zero tolerance for surprises, because that's why they're hiring you, to make sure that everything is running well so that they can go focus and be more externally focused and get focused more on the business and the strategic aspects of things. So make sure that you are not surprising anybody, and you're making sure that the important and urgent matters are proactively communicated.
Yeah.
Second thing I would say is, as you start growing in your career, you need to consider your peers as more of your team, and spend more time with them in having broad conversations, or conversation which span the organizational boundaries, which are not in your direct purview per se. And in order to do that, you have to be able to make the day-to-day running as BAU as possible, and you have to get very, very good at delegating. Because what you want to do as you're growing up in your career is, you want to spend more of your time thinking ahead. You want to spend more of your time with your peers so that you understand the problems broadly. And you want to spend your time solving more strategic problem and not the day-to-day problems. So those are the three buckets I would put it when it comes to the communication. If you're thinking, let's say if you, I'll just give you another tactical tip as well, is that sometimes you might say, I do not know how to communicate something, and I don't know what this other person needs to know. It's actually okay for you to ask. Don't be shy and don't be afraid of asking. I believe this is important. Do you believe this is important to you? If it is, then I will do it. If it's not, then I will not. So get feedback early and get feedback often on what you're communicating and how you're communicating.
Makes sense.
People like that kind of transparency, or I would say a lot of good leaders, or every good leader would like that.
Okay, this is great. I think that's a good tip. Let's take a quick break.